Lauren, from the United States, has been living in China for over 4 years. She's traveled many places in China, including Qingdao, Nanjing, Chengdu, Shenzhen, Yunnan, and Inner Mongolia. One of the places she is most familiar with is Changchun City, where she worked for 1.5 years a few years ago as an English teacher. Changchun is the capital of Jilin province, which is located in the northeast of China. The city is modern, but much smaller than metropolises like Beijing and Shanghai. Living in Changchun, it might be quite difficult to meet English speakers, whether local or foreign. Like any expat, it took time for Lauren to adapt to her new living environment, and there were lots of challenges and cultural shocks ahead of her.
When I first arrived, they only had one light rail line. And if you want to get to the heart of the city where all the parks and the shopping areas are, you have to take buses, and the buses don't have any English. And Changchun is very well known for just being constantly under construction. So the streets and the buildings are always there's always new buildings, and it's dirty. And so I kind of arrived and I was like, where am I? Where am I living,
Living in a smaller city was not completely inconvenient. It gave Lauren the opportunity to learn the Chinese language faster, as jumping in the deep end in a new country often means immersing yourself in the language. Very soon, Lauren picked up the basics. In Changchun, many expats are from Russia and Germany. The former borders with Jilin province, and so it's easy to cross the border and travel to Changchun. Over the past century, this city has made strong trade and business ties with Russia.
So most of the time, people didn't know that I was American. They would assume that I was either Russian or German. At one memorable time was I was on the subway, and the guy next to me started to talk to me in Russian, and I was like, I don't know what you're saying, and because I said in Chinese that I didn't understand what he was saying, and he was so sure that I was Russian, and so he says back to me in Chinese oh, I'm so sorry, my Russian isn't very good. I'm sorry, you must not be able to understand me. And then I said, no, I'm American, so I can't speak Russian. I'm sure your Russian is wonderful.
Changchun is also the city with the largest automobile production in China. That's why German companies have opened many factories there. The Germans are simply too busy with their work to interact with locals, which put them under the impression that Westerners can't understand Chinese.
So I would often have people sitting next to me on the bus, or on the park bench, or at the table next to me at dinner, and they would be talking to each other about, oh, where do you think that girl's from? Well, I think she's pretty. No, I don't think she's very pretty. Or they would be talking all about me and think that I couldn't understand. But it was really funny because a couple of times, I would just be sitting there on the bus and they would be talking about me, and then somebody would call my phone and I would pick up and I would start speaking to them in Chinese, and the person next to me would go, oh, get so embarrassed.
Changchun is also largely influenced by Korea, which is another close neighbour of Jilin province. Even before Korea split in two, large numbers of Korean people migrated to China and settled down in the northeast in the early 20th century. Unfortunately, they also brought their dog-eating culture.
That was something that I tried to avoid, but unfortunately there were a couple of times where it would be really impolite if I turned it down. One time when my friend invited me over, and all the family was there, and they all thought it was really good, and they were all really excited about it, and I couldn't refuse, so I had to eat a piece and be like, oh, this tastes great. And there was another time when I was living with a homestay family that there was one night that the homestay dad had made dog meat and forgot to tell me before I started eating, and I just thought it was some other kind of meat, and took a bite, and then he goes, oh no, I forgot to tell you, do you know what that is? And it turned out that it was dog meat.
It's not just the dog meat which proved to be a difficulty. A local fashion trend also touched Lauren's nerve. The popularity of the fur coat in Changchun was another Russian influence.
In the winter, they would always a lot of people really wanted to wear fur coats. A lot of it was imported from Russia, where they don't really have as strict rules about making fur coats, and it kind of made me sad because there was just so many people wearing fur coats, and I kept thinking about where that was all coming from. But yeah, everyone there wanted a real fur coat. That was a really cool thing to wear in the wintertime.
She always tries to talk to people about animal protection issues, but it never really works. After all, it must be tricky to get your point across if you're the odd one out.
A lot of the women, like their makeup was very, very intense, and it just looked like they were ready to go out to a club, and it would be like 8 o'clock in the morning, like they were going to work. They always would a lot of them make their hair like really, really big, kind of like the style back in like the 50s and 60s in the US, like it would kind of like the beehive, like it would be really big, or they would like crimp it so it was like poofed out a lot. They were always trying to get me to do that with my hair too, but I was like, no, I think I'll stick to my own.
Jilin province is one of the coldest places in China. In the winter, tourists from warm places travel here for the breathtaking rime scenery. In the summer, the weather is much cooler than in the south. Lauren traveled to many places in Jilin province when she worked in Changchun. The most memorable trip was the Heavenly Lake, a crater lake at the border of North Korea, which she visited with her mother.
We just felt really lucky because a lot of times when you go, like the weather is different on the top of the mountain from the bottom of the mountain. And there's like a famous, like they said that one of the leaders of China, like every time he went there, he never actually got to see the crater lake because, it can be like clear at the bottom of the mountain, and then you go to the top of the mountain and it's all fog. But we were lucky because the day that we went was just absolutely beautiful, and it was like clear light blue crater lake.
As time passed, Lauren made lots of friends in Changchun, and that gave her opportunities to have hands-on experience with the city and the lives of the local people. Come back next week for more of Lauren's Changchun experiences.